Greetings, vinyl community. On January 16th, the composer Peter Schickele passed away at the age of 88. And Peter Schickele is best known, not for his serious classical compositions, of which there are some, but as the creator of the character of P.D.Q. Bach, whose music has more to do with Spike Jones than with the sound of his putative father. The first P.D.Q. Bach album came out in 1965. It was followed by sequels in 1966 and 67, and then there wasn't a fourth P.D.Q. Bach album until 1970. So in that gap between the third and the fourth, Peter Schickele was in a group called The Open Window, and that's what I'll be talking about today, the album by The Open Window, which is something along the lines of three classical musicians doing psychedelic rock, except that this isn't really rock because it doesn't have a rhythm section. It's basically three keyboard players. Peter Schickele is credited as playing mostly piano. Robert Dennis plays mostly electric piano and electric harpsichord. And Stanley Walden plays mostly organ, also clarinet. Robert Dennis is shown on the back actually with the Farfisa organ. There's Stanley Walden with his bass clarinet, which features prominently on his composition Piece by the New Guy. And Peter Schickele is there with the recorder. Everybody sings and plays recorders and percussion. Although this was the only proper album by The Open Window, they also did the music for the erotic stage presentation O Calcutta. So there are records of that floating about, which I don't have to show, so you'll have to find those for yourself. I can't do all the work here. Although the album doesn't contain any electronic music or anything really experimental, to me, and in fact nothing really rock, although it edges on rock, to me it has a bit of the same vibe as Joseph Byrd's work, The United States of America, and especially the Field Hippies album, The American Metaphysical Circus. This album even does end with an evocation of the circus, so it's got a little bit of that same headspace, and I think that's something that was floating around in the late 60s. This was made in 1969. It opens with a composition by Peter Schickele, Wild Bill Hickok Rides Again, which is very much in the rock vein. It's got a Motown flavor actually created by playing a tambourine on the offbeats. One weakness of this group is that they did not have a strong singer. So Peter Schickele takes the lead on vocals, and it is not great. But it's a kind of raucous, honky-tonk, Motown vaudeville rock blend with lyrics about Wild Bill Hickok, apparently trying to make a comeback and finding that that's easier said than done. You get sort of background chatter like it's recorded in a pub or a bar room, maybe in the Wild West, a saloon. That's the word. It's the residents of a saloon making the background chatter on this song. That leads into a composition by Robert Dennis, At the Wedding, an instrumental piece. It's a more classical sounding thing, got a bit more of a prog vibe to it, a proto-prog feel, which is something that happens a lot on this. So this will appeal to people who are interested in progressive rock, even though, as I will emphasize, it's not really rock anywhere on the album. It does have wordless vocals and a kind of Eastern European feel, but basically an impressionistic classical vibe, followed by a very soft and eerie piece written again by Peter Schickele, titled 4 a.m. June, the sky was green. 5.5-minute piece with vocals only at the very end, which are plaintive and deeply reverbed. Mostly it's sort of meandering electric piano themes over throbbing chords. That's followed by a composition by Robert Dennis again, Soldier's Song from the Last War for the Next. And it's a brief song, 4 lines in German, sung by German soldiers at the end of World War II, or during World War II, as it says. And it's a softly, again, plaintively sung opening section. It's just the 4 lines over and over again. Es ist alles vorüber, es ist alles vorbei, 3 Jahre in Russland und nix Ponimai. It is all over, it's all gone, 3 years in Russia, and nothing makes any sense. But it goes into a very interesting jazz section, multi-segmented, kind of a suite, and the sort of propulsive jazz theme then mixes with the soft opening ballad part. A lot of interesting dynamics in this piece. It's one of the more proggy parts. And the side 1 ends with an adaptation of a poem by the Roman poet Gaius Naevius from the 3rd century BC, Girl from Tarentum. It begins with classical sounding piano, and then it goes into an organ section with percussion, and the vocal enters. And it all becomes extremely silly because the lead vocal is done in what appears to be a really bad Bob Dylan impersonation with doo-wop backing vocals. And the whole thing just ends up with the recorder trio. But it's an extremely goofy way to end the side. Side 2 begins with another Robert Dennis composition. Girl from Tarentum was by Stanley Walden, the only Walden composition on side 1. Italian Symphony, a 6-minute piece called Symphony, or for some reason, and called Italian for some reason. As it says here, so called because of a subjective quirk of the composer who thinks it sounds Italian. It's just a sort of classical, again, keyboard piece, bit dissonant. I'm not sure all the keyboards on this album are really in tune with one another, so there's that. Followed by Stanley Walden's piece by the new guy, as previously mentioned, which is largely a blues-based composition featuring his bass clarinet. It's the only appearance of anything at all bluesy on this album. A little bit, you know, these are classical musicians, so it's got that kind of Gershwin version of the blues feel to it. Followed by, again, something very brief, taking the name of a classical form. It's Peter Schickele's Piano Concerto No. 1 in G major. The work is in one concise movement, the timing of which is 2 minutes 43 seconds. And it's not at all what you might think of something called that, the Piano Concerto in G major. It's a rollicking, ragtime, boogie-woogie kind of piece. I actually hear an Aaron Copland kind of vibe to it. And that's followed by another Peter Schickele composition, The Priests of the Raven of Dawn, the longest piece on the album at just 1 second short of 7 minutes, and it's based on 2 poems by William Blake, a great favorite poet of mine. It's very dark and creepy, plodding over throbbing piano chords again, very eerie vocals throughout, keening sound, expressing the very, very dark poetry of William Blake's Portrait of London about filth and disease. Literally, the last verse is about venereal disease. And the refrain taken from The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, let the priests of the Raven of Dawn no longer curse the sons of joy. So that's something that fits into the dark psychedelic vibe that might have been heard on something like the United States of America album. And finally, we have Curtain Call, in parentheses, Circus, a composition by Stanley Walden, which is kind of chaotic, different keyboards sort of clambering over one another. To me, it has sort of the feel of being for the benefit of Mr. Kite. So I think it maybe has that kind of being a circus tune. I think maybe that's what they were going for, that same kind of effect that you get with the scrambled calliope sounds on Sgt. Pepper. So that's it. That's the Open Window album from 1969. Rest in peace, Professor Peter Schickele. Thanks very much for watching. Be well. Talk with you again soon. Bye-bye for now.